This is Truthful Manipulation, where truth is the truth and reality is made real and clear to understand. I'm Dave Kelsey, and I'm here today with my co-host, H. Daniel Mujahid. On this week's episode of Truthful Manipulation, we're going to take you in a little different direction, and this comes from one of our younger viewing member or listening members. We had a young man that came to us this week.
22 years old.
That said, and I don't even know, Daniel, if the age is important. What these young males need to understand is you've got folks out there trying to manipulate you on a daily basis into trying to be some type of misogynistic male. And I can tell you this, I've been married for 45 years. And in today's society, if that you think that you can go out there and you can try to put across this portrayal of yourself as being some type of macho man that all these women are going to look up to, you are seriously delusional today, because those that have the most power as far as a male goes are those that treat their partners as equals.
Dave, I noticed I had a chance to just sit and observe the conversations, and he was talking about his colleagues and groups and what they talk about, and I was appreciating that you were able to connect with him. There was no age gap dilemma. There was none of that. And you talked about several things, but I wanted to bring attention to a point that he made about his friends and he constantly being challenged almost in what becomes called now rationalize, he said.
Well, they try to rationalize this behavior.
Yeah, but he used a different term. He said radicalized.
Radicalized.
Yes. And he was reaching out because in the last show that he listened to, he said it was very important to him and his friends as they were talking, how you demonstrate respect for what they're going through. And I wanted to ask you, and reaching out to this group, I think we'll have him and some of his colleagues on at some time in the near future for discussion. But I'm wondering, is this an ethnic issue? He happened to be representing white males, but do you think that we have the same situations in the different cultures, or where are we in America?
I think that you have it in every culture across America today, and I don't believe that it has anything to do with anything other than it's just another form of racism. And Daniel, you know how I grew up.
Yes, sir.
I grew up in a racist society. I need all of these young males to hear this, because I'm not going to sit here and tell you what we want you to believe. We're going to show you a way to critically think about situations, but we need you to make the decisions for yourself. And I'm going to say to you, you have a lot of groups out there today, but they're trying to influence and they're trying to radicalize against other human beings, whether it be minorities, whether it be women, whether it be somebody else that somehow or another, white males in particular, have got this idea that they're somehow or another better than these other people. Well, you know what? If you want to be better than these other people, try being better than these other people instead of preaching this nonsense that you're preaching. One of the things that this young man said to us the other day, I work in a place where I have a lot of guys come in and say to me, I'm divorced, I'm miserable, I don't like where I am, but they all seem to be pointing fingers at somebody else. And I said to him, when he said that to me, I said, you can remember this. When you have somebody that comes in and goes, oh, I was married and I got 3 kids and I'm divorced and I got to pay child support and I hate that bitch and blah, 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 all the rest of this. You know what the real problem is? Wasn't her. If he's speaking like that, that means he had no respect for his partner. But yet, this is an individual that wants you to respect them when they've earned nothing. You have to understand, respect is not given today. Respect is earned, and that's where society is greatly missing today. Can you look at our federal government today and go, I respect the things that the people at the top are doing? If you tell me you can, I'm calling bullshit. Because there's no way that you can look at these folks and think about respect. And let's go on to the religious community. I talked about this in last week's thing. We talked about Revelation 13. I'm not a big one about bringing religion up into the podcast because I don't think that it has a place. But in this case, it does have a place because the religious folks in this country are proclaiming that there's something that they're not. What they are is protecting the offering plate because they won't speak the truth, because by God, every person in the U.S. knows what wrong is from what wrong is. But yet, we've allowed these people to come in and influence, particularly our younger generations, in a way that they're questioning, am I supposed to be this masculine asshole to portray how big and bad a person that I am? Or am I one that's going to be willing to set back and flow with the punches instead of being the one throwing the punches?
Dave, now we decided to focus on the issues of radicalization and what's happening in America and the lack of confidence in our government leaders from the male perspective. And I think we definitely want to have a separate special shows when we talk about what the women experience and what they see in terms of our lack of stepping up as
Daniel, my
leaders.
full intention is to come back next week and talk to you young ladies out there. This week, we're going to tackle the problem of people attempting to radicalize our young males. And I'm not just talking about our young white males, Daniel. I'm talking about our young black males, our young Hispanic males, our young Muslim males. I'm looking at all of the males that somehow or another feel as if they've been marginalized by society, which I find funny because as white males, which I'm one of them, you've been afforded every ability to sort yourself out and do good things in the world. But instead, some of you have decided to fall into this regime of, I'm better than those people. I'm better than females. That female owes me something. Well, guess what, boys? You're not owed anything. What you are owed is the opportunity to advance yourself. But if you're not willing to advance yourself, if you're a married male and you're not willing to advance yourself with your partner as an equal, you're not going to get very far in the world at all. What you are going to get is you're going to end up being an old, ugly, white, disenfranchised person that never gets along and fits into society. And to be quite honest with you, wouldn't be surprising to me if you guys aren't one of the ones out there that would go out there and do something ridiculous because you think that you're marginalized.
America, in its history, we know that these issues are prevalent, remain, and it is up to you and I to discuss and solve them together, not apart. We need a solution that works for all of us, not just some of us, not just certain targeted, designated ones. We are all Americans. We have distinctions as Americans, and those differences and distinctions must be respected.
Daniel, it's our differences that made us the strongest nation on the planet, because we took every demographic out there. It didn't matter where you were, where you came from. You came to America. You did the right thing. You were able to try to achieve the American dream. But isn't it funny? We have all of these people coming here from outside of the U.S. that are trying to get the American dream, but yet we've got white males in this country that, by God, have been given the American dream without any repercussions, without any reproach, but yet they're the ones that think, I've got to have control over somebody else or I'm not a male.
Now, if our leadership is hell-bent on being mean and being, I would say, arbitrary and contrary, and
let's be real, Dan. Our leadership today couldn't find its ass with a tour guide. That means if they had somebody leading them down the primrose path, guess where they're going? They're going right straight to the edge of the cliff, and they're going to continue to drop off. You want to know why? Because they aren't willing to listen to the voice of reason.
So Dave is pointing out to us, all of us, America, that we owe each other. We have a responsibility to each other. These spaces that we go to in America, these free spaces, used to be free, the parks and the lakes and the rivers and the schools and the churches and the masjids and the temples and the synagogues. They used to be free places that were respected by the community, by the human being, by the male, by the female. Now it's a challenge going in and it's a challenge going out in terms of safety, in terms of crime, in terms of respect. And it is up to us. We have an obligation to each other to fix this together.
And inclusive of beliefs, Daniel, because somebody along the way convinced some of these young white males that they had an entitlement that they're not entitled to. You only get to be entitled to things if you were born a king or if you were born a queen. The rest of us, we have to earn that place in life because it wasn't given to us. I wasn't born with my father giving me $400 million that I was able to squander away however I chose, that I was able to pay for a college education, but not really ever get one, where I was able to, because of what I did, not go and get killed in Vietnam like a lot of his subordinates did, or a lot of people that weren't his subordinates, but ended up being in the ground because we had powerful people that were white that chose to not have their children have to suffer the same consequences of those of us that didn't come from those type of means.
Ding, 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 ding. Here's a jewel for you and for me. Use your pencils or your computers or your phones or your Blackberries or your tape recorders. But get this down right now. Ready? White supremacy was a game, a strategy, a plot, a scheme that was played on human beings.
Where did that strategy come out of, Daniel? Came right out of the religious organizations, didn't it?
Yes.
Because it was always about power and money and the pocket strings. And that's exactly what we have today. I was born and raised evangelical Christian, and I am so disappointed with that particular religious sect because, and I can call them a sect today because they're only interested in the bottom line. Last week, we talked to you about Revelation 13, and I told you that I never wanted this podcast to be taken in a religious format. But when we look at that particular passage of scripture and we digest it, and I suggest all of you white males that think that you've somehow or another been put down, have a read of this to find out just exactly how bad we've been manipulated and have been fooled by the fools that are in charge right now.
Now, in the Muslim community, it has a different slant, but the result, the points that you make are the same. We're united in it. But in the Muslim community, in our practices and our processes, it becomes obvious that our women have not let the society down. The society have let them down. In the Muslim community, we realize the males are given a responsibility to handle matters that cause us to demonstrate leadership. Now, we're taught leadership from mothers, but the demonstration is a practice that we enjoy doing. Yet many of the Muslims in America, on conversations and in my efforts, for example, to get them to vote for a black woman, and there's, in the real religion of Al-Islam, there is no racism, but in the practices of the people, it exists. And these so-called, many of them are called imams, which means they're qualified to lead the spiritual needs of the community, right? Well, these imams tell me, well, Daniel, you just don't understand. You're born in America. You don't understand. We got to send a tough message. And so then they find and justify a way to actually, those of you who are Muslim, when you look at it, our imams encourage us to vote for a Dajjal. Yes, Dajjal. Some put it under the guise of none of the above. Some put it under the guise of let's not even participate. Some put it in the guise of we have to send a tough message to D.C., Washington, D.C., because we don't like what's happening around the world with warfare. So then now we end up finding a way to hurt our own selves. Come on.
Daniel, isn't it funny that most all of this leads back to religion, whether it's Islam, whether it's Christianity, whether it's Judaism, or any other religion there is? It seems that all of them have this conflicted viewpoint that males somehow or another are superior to females.
I don't think that really carries across the board. It does have ramifications. When we look at Islam, we know that the greatest leader for the rights of women, Muhammad, peace be upon him, he did a wonderful job of turning that ignorant Arab mind around, who the Arab minds saw the woman as being inferior. But in the practices, even the practices that go back to Abraham, we call the hope of Abraham, which we all unite in terms of the concept of monotheism, it was just ignorant, like you said, ignorant males from time to time who we may have been coached, who might have been tricked into thinking that there was some kind of superiority because of skin or gender. That never was in the religion, but human beings and cultures put it in the way they see their religion.
Let's take Christianity and Islam today. The religions didn't ever tear down women. The terrible men that were running the religions did. So as we look at this and as we make our plea to younger males today, don't highlight these guys that are misogynist. They're never going to get ahead in the real world, because in the real world, you have to have the support of a female to be a whole male. You may be a male, but you're not going to be a whole male by following that teaching.
And remember, in the nature of the language, don't forget, woman is a type of man also. Don't think of the physiology of the gender when you're speaking of man. Man is a term that refers to mind. If you understand the word itself is, for example, mentality. Man means mind. And so we have confused a lot of ideas in scripture. Our reading is to always think of in terms of physical flesh and gender, when it's addressing concepts of intellectualism, mentalities, spiritualities, and we miss that. And the leadership of the religious organizations, you have a responsibility to fix that, because you are actually complicit when you don't speak out in these wrongful ways.
As we look at these religions today, don't highlight these people that are misogynist, that are running these things. These are not people to be emulated. These are actually people to be despised. They're never going, or you're never going to achieve what you need to achieve in life if you think that you're going to do it with some type of misogynistic background. And we make a plea to all of you males out there today: kinder and happier will make you a better rounded individual than misogynistic and mean. And that's this week's episode of Truthful Manipulation. We would really like you to comment about today's show at truthfulmanipulation@gmail.com. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe at truthfulmanipulation.com. Follow us on Instagram weekly for updates. And don't forget to pick up a copy of our book, Truthful Manipulation. It'll help you see the deficiencies that are in your life on a weekly basis. Thanks very much for listening.